All right. It looks like people have joined, and I'm sure some people will still be trickling in, but we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Rebeca Pupo. I'm the current chair of the Florida Society of Cosmetic Chemists. We're putting on this career panel, basically, together with the UF chapter of PolyPIMC. So a little bit about just the FLSCC for those of you who maybe don't know. Um, so we're the Florida chapter of the Society of Cosmetic Chemists. So this is specifically for people who work in the cosmetics or personal care industry. And there are a whole lot of different career paths that you can join in this industry. There's formulation, there's regulatory stuff, there's sales, there's ingredients. There are so many different paths that you can take. And today we really wanted to showcase that and maybe give you all some ideas of things you might want to do in the future that you could do in this industry. And Rhys, if you want to introduce PolyPIMC.
Oh yeah. So PolyPIMZ is the polymer and polymer material science and engineering division here at UF. The aim is to sort of engage students within these divisions, and then help with to provide networking to pursue their career developments, whether that be in industry or in academia. And then we also do outreach events to schools to hopefully engage students to further pursue a career in science.
And we're really excited to be putting on this event together. And I want to remind all of you, please ask questions. You can go ahead and submit questions now if you already know things that you definitely want asked, or you can submit questions throughout the event as they come to you as our panelists discuss all the aspects of their career. So just a reminder, please ask questions. We want your questions. And I would like to introduce all of our panelists, and first of all, give them a big thank you for participating in this today. We really appreciate your time and being here. So on our panel today, we have Danielle Wheeler, we have Stephanie Haller, we have Vanessa Thomas, and we have Colleen Rocafort. And then each of them can give you a little description of their career and what they do. Danielle, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Rebeca, and thanks for inviting me to be on this panel. Cosmetic chemistry is definitely an industry I'm very passionate about. I've had my whole career in cosmetic chemistry. My background is I have a degree in chemistry from the University of Florida. So as I said, my alma mater, I have a nice affinity to UF. I currently work for a company called IMCD, and we are a distributor of ingredients for beauty and personal care. I'm the business development director and technical director for the Americas. I've done formulating, I've done sales, and now I do a sort of a combination of both.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Stephanie, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody, and thank you again for inviting me to be a panelist. Just like Danielle, I've been in the cosmetic industry my entire career. I'm working on 20 years as being a formulator. I graduated with my undergrad degree in biology and a minor in chemistry from Manhattan College. I am an ex-New Yorker, and I also have my MBA from Dowling, also New York. I've been in Florida about 6 years, and I'm never leaving. And I started my career off at Estee Lauder Companies, and I currently now have founded and owned Formulations Unlimited Consulting. So I work as a formulator and a consultant for multiple contract manufacturers, suppliers, as well as finished good brands. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Vanessa, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me as well. My name is Vanessa Thomas, and I'm a graduate of New Jersey Institute of Technology with a bachelor's degree in chemistry. I also have a master's in cosmetic science from Fairleigh Dickinson, and that's also in New Jersey. And I'm currently the CEO and founder of Freelance Formulations, and we are a product development lab. We specialize in custom formulations for beauty brands and entrepreneurs that are interested in marketing and selling their own cosmetic products. And my current role at Freelance Formulations is the onboarding process, where we're bringing in new clients and projects. And I also oversee the whole operation here at Freelance Formulations. My whole career as well is in cosmetic science. I graduated high school in 1998. 2 years into my career, I interned at a raw material company. And since that experience, I knew that this was the career path for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Colleen, you're up.
Hi, I'm Colleen Rocafort. I've been in the industry my whole career as well, for 45 plus years. I've had a very wide experience. I graduated from Montclair State University with a bachelor's in chemistry with ACS certification. I also have a master's in cosmetic science from Fairleigh Dickinson University. I was actually the second graduate of that program, Vanessa, so many years earlier than you. I've just retired. I just retired July 1st from BASF. So I've been with BASF Chemical for raw material supplier for over 22 years in various roles. And I've had very different roles. I started in R&D. I've had a commercial role running a polymer business for Ciba Specialty Chemicals. I did some low VOC polymer work where I learned about polymers at ISP, which is now Ashland Chemical. And most of my experience has been in cosmetic science, really learning about hair care. And I've been doing global formulations, and with the help of ISP, Ciba, and BASF, I've traveled, globally around the world. So technical service, global technical key account management is my former role prior to retiring, working for one of our global customers. So really a very wide background. I was involved with the University Relations Group with the North American Innovation Team for BASF. So, like I said earlier, I have visited the UF campus and been invited to a few events in the past. So, very happy to be here. Hope to help you answer any questions you want.
Thank you so much. So we have some questions to sort of start things off. And like I said, everybody please submit your questions at any time, and we'll make sure that they get asked. But just to kick things off, for our first question, this is for Colleen. What skills and or talents do you think that you need to do well at your job or your most recent job?
Well, being a global technical customer, you need to understand your customer, right? So I'd say customer focus is key, and really trying to understand the unmet needs that the customer wants, whether it's in formulation development or understanding the what they're trying to do. Other skills, I mean, as a researcher, you need to understand the polymer structure relationship, also how products are applied to hair or skin, and how to formulate those products. So one of the reasons I went for my master's in cosmetic science was to understand, when you formulate products, how to formulate them, understanding the nuances of, aerosol technology, things like that. So the skills are really, you need to understand the market you're in, right? What, which area you're in, skin, hair, wherever your expertise is. And if it was an area I was unfamiliar with, I would basically go back for schooling, right? The continuing education program, the Society of Cosmetic Chemists have a lot of focused courses on specific items. So really understanding microbiology as an example, or encapsulation, or just different things like that. But the other things you need to do well in your job, obviously, would be one, communication, right? You need to be able to communicate well. you also need to be able to manage your projects, and you may have multiple projects, so being able to do that. And then really networking. I think one of the key things with the center is that you do a lot of intermixing with the different groups. I think for us to solve some of the unmet needs by the customer, it's really understanding where do you go, right, to get those answers. You're not an expert in everything, so where can you go to get that? So I think that's one of the key things. And then collaborating, just the normal softer skills. You need to be able to work on teams. You need to be able to lead teams. So these are some of the things that I think are most important. I don't know if other people have other ideas.
I have a follow-up question for that, actually. When you're trying to understand a new product category, where do you go to research that? What do you look into specifically?
Is that to me? Was that question for me? Sorry.
Yes, that's a follow-up
Okay.
for you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, would you repeat that? I wasn't sure if you were asking someone else on the panel.
No, just because you commented on it, I was asking you a follow-up of when you are trying to understand a new product category that you're not familiar with, where do you go to research it? Because I know for a lot of students.
To be honest, I use my network. I think one of the key things, one of my strengths was over the years was really being very strategic about my network. To believe it or not, Society of Cosmetic Chemists, there's so many technical experts in the fields, in the different fields. So if it was an area where I was having issues with a particular area, I would go. We had an ask an expert panel, and I would basically be able to pick up the phone and ask some questions on that. So and then just really researching it. Go online and researching. Look at the technical literature. Look at any U.S. patents that might have been published on this type of information. Part of my original job, when I first started my job, I was in a contract filler, and part of my job was to do market scouting twice a year. Was really so to understand what that market was, what the new products were, what new ingredients were being added, what were they saying about those ingredients. So just really trying to get a better understanding of what those products were in order to help me formulate my products or to troubleshoot my issues.
Awesome, thank you. The next question is for Danielle. How many different types of jobs are there in your field of work, and what are they?
Well, after looking back at my career, I've done almost every type of job in this industry. So I actually started out in quality and then went on to regulatory and then formulations. So I think there's so many aspects of cosmetic chemistry. So regulations is an important part of our job, and knowing them even as a formulator, knowing that is, I think, really key to I use it now even every day, like knowing regulatories within our industry, because sun care is a regulated industry. It's an industry I worked in for 10 years doing formulations, and having that knowledge now really helps me. But there's also other regulations within the cosmetic chemistry. So I feel like all of those have led to where I am today. So I feel like it's a very important path that I've taken. And so yeah, I would say there's numerous roles that you can have. And I think starting out in the lab or starting out in a regulatory position is great for getting where you want to be in the future, or even stay there. There's so many paths you could take: management, or you can stay in the lab and be management in the lab. So I think they're all very important. And the other thing I would say that's very important in my career has been mentors. So almost every company I've ever worked for, I've had a mentor. And that would be some advice I would give to a college student looking to get into this career. Of having a mentor has been really key to me, or just seeing somebody, being open to somebody teaching you something you don't know.
Thank you so much. The next question is for both Stephanie and Vanessa. Maybe Vanessa, you can answer first. This question is, what do you like best about your job? What's the most satisfying part, and what aspects are most appealing to you?
Sure. So what I like best about my job is when I was working in corporate, there were a number of things that I didn't want. So now that I own my own business, kind of switched the roles. So I believe in a work-life balance. So we have a 3-day weekend. So I think that's what I like best about my job. We work 10-hour shifts Monday through Thursday, and the ladies enjoy their 3-day weekend. So I would say that's what I like best. The second question was, what's most satisfying?
Yes.
Okay, so I would say the most satisfying part about my job is getting the approval from the client. So we custom formulate products here, and we deal with several different clients, several different personalities, several different projects. Every project that comes through the door is totally different, and it's based off of our client's idea. So I would say getting that approval is the most satisfying part of the job, because it just means that we've satisfied the clients and pretty much satisfied their dream of developing a custom formula for them. And I think that third question was, what's most appealing? I think what's most appealing is pretty much the management style I've created here for the team. It's the chemists, they aren't really micromanaged. It's more of a collaborative learning environment. So it kind of stems creativity. So I would say that.
Thank you. Stephanie, do you need me to repeat the question, or?
Oh, no, I can, my answer is kind of a summary of all three. And I totally agree with Vanessa, as I also have my consulting company. It's definitely more rewarding versus being in a big corporate setting. I did learn a lot about the industry in a corporate setting, but have since been able to branch off and have had the opportunities to branch off. So I'm very thankful for that. The thing that I find amazing about this industry is every day there's something new. Even the same project, the same formula you're working on, something new comes up. And it's always trying to figure out the cause and effect and how to fix things. And when you move from a small scale batch, bench batch, into a pilot batch and a bigger production batch, there are always hiccups, no matter what. You could have your I's dotted, your T's crossed, and there's always going to be some sort of issue that pops up. And, you have to put on your detective hat to figure out, did the compounder misweigh something? Is the lot of the raw material incorrect? Was the temperature of the kettle incorrect? And you kind of have to dissect everything. And it's almost like, like on NCIS, trying to figure out a crime scene and figuring out what actually happened to fix that issue. So I find that extremely rewarding, and it's definitely not a boring job. Every day, like I said, something new. And I've been in the industry 20 years, and you still learn every day from everybody. And a point that Danielle made about mentorship, I kind of figured out as a chemist, it's almost like an apprenticeship where you have your base from your schooling and your technical knowledge from schooling and theoretical knowledge. But until you get on the bench and actually create things, anything can happen in the real world. So just because, it seems like it would go this way in theory, doesn't necessarily mean in the real world that that's the case. So it's a super fun industry. I love it. And as you can see, I'm very passionate about it. I never thought that I would be in cosmetics, especially going through school, but I fell into it, and I'm so happy and fortunate that I did. And the other thing that's appealing to me is I have so much fun. The industry is very small, and the networking is incredible. The people that you meet and come in contact with are fantastic. I've made lifelong friends with other coworkers, raw material suppliers, etc. So it is a really fun industry to work in.
Thank you so much.
I hope I answered all your questions.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Okay, the next question is for Colleen and for Danielle. What skills are essential for success in your career? Hard and soft skills. And Danielle, I feel like you talked a little bit about this before. So if you have anything else that you want to add on to that answer, why don't you start off?
Sure. I'm listening to Stephanie talk. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. All of those things you're talking about, like production issues. You learn so much from scaling up a product that even at that time when it may be the worst thing in the world, it's the best thing later when you learn from that issue of, okay, I know this now when I see it again in the future. I think for this career, I would say it's a combination of art and science. So if you're a creative person, but you're also a scientific person, this is like the ideal path for you. That's how I feel about cosmetic chemistry. It's very creative, but it also requires a lot of science. So as Stephanie said, you need that basis of chemistry, but you need to also be open to more abstract thought, I guess, in order to figure out problems. So I would say definitely you need, it's funny because I started out in regulatory, which is very regimented, and I'm very creative, but I love the regulatory side. So I love that regimented side. And I really think it was good for me to understand that, because even when I went into formulating, which is more creative, having that knowledge helped me to understand things about formulating and launching a product to market. So it's hard. I think mentors, huge. You can learn so much from so many people in this industry. And like Stephanie and Colleen also said, like networking and getting to know people has been key from my career. I was very involved with the Society of Cosmetic Chemists, and that's key, I think, to my success. So
Thank you. Colleen, same question.
Basically reiterate what Danielle said as well as Vanessa and Stephanie. I think that, you need to be specialized, right, from a research point of view if you're doing your research. So you need to be knowledgeable. You need to keep learning. I think for me, even though I had my degree, that was one of the reasons I went back for my cosmetic science degree, because I was working in a contract filler, things were going wrong and we couldn't figure out why. And then once I learned, went through the classes and I said, oh, well, that's why that happened. It wasn't our fault, right? So it kind of helped to solidify. So I think it's, it's experience as you're learning experience, right? As you go through it. And a lot of the work, at least in the hairspray industry, was always regulatory driven. To add on to Danielle, the low VOC that came through, we had to figure out, well, what were the issues when you added water to hairspray? And then how do you then formulate something that's going to be the same, right? So, but as far as other skills, I think there's different tracks that you can do. So it really depends on your job. I did start out in analytical as well. I was testing raw materials, and then I ended up working for a chemical company, right? Raw material supplier. So I've been on both ends, which is kind of fun. But I think it's just, you have to be open to learning, right? From either, technical literature searches, things like that, or your colleagues, and then experience. But I think that I see more importance put on collaboration, teamwork. So you need to be able to collaborate with your team, and either lead a team or collaborate with the team members. Again, and don't lose sight of the ball, right? I think the other key thing is sometimes we want to solve something, but we didn't listen to what the customer actually said. So really defining what the customer wants and not over promising or overdoing, right? It's really just trying to making sure that you're delivering, what they're looking for, and not, researching something to death. So I know when I joined ISP, there were some projects there for many, many years. And I'm like, why are we still working on this? What's the return on investment? So I think it's important to, look through all that, and, and then working with technology. And again, my network, and just to add on to what Stephanie said, I have lifelong friends that I started in the program. And the reason I joined the Society of Cosmetic Chemists was Erwin Pilecki, right? So he was one of our major founders for the SCC in the early days. So, and he was my customer. So I used to do color matching for him. So it's interesting. So those are some of the things. I don't know if there's others.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This question is for Vanessa. since you were talking about how you're more in the onboarding side, and I would assume that that includes hiring, what type of prior experience is necessary, and what would you look for on someone's resume?
For me, I don't really look for experience. I look for more of the determination and the passion of wanting to be a cosmetic chemist. So when I hire, I usually scout my next hire. So I'll stalk on LinkedIn, and they'll usually have the aspiring cosmetic chemist. So that shows me that they're determined and they're passionate about this industry. So I'll DM them, say, hey, you know what, we're hiring. Are you interested in interviewing for the position? Most companies are looking for about the 2 to 3 years experience, but I mean, there's creative ways to kind of get around that. Things like joining the SCC and networking, I feel is important. DMing smaller brands, offering to do technical blogs and articles for their companies. How I started, I applied to a staffing agency. So the staffing agent knows the hiring manager, and you talk the talk, sell yourself, and you'll most likely get an interview that way.
So if somebody is like cold applying and maybe you haven't stalked them previously, is there any kind of undergraduate like research experience or something that they could have on their resume that would make you take a second look?
Definitely the coursework, technical articles, specific classes that they enjoyed, a nice cover letter that drops aspects of the industry that lets me know you're really interested and passionate about getting into this industry.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is for Stephanie. What kind of supervision did you have when you were starting out in the industry? And then now, probably significantly different. So
yeah, it's funny. So just like Vanessa, I also got my opportunity through a staffing agency. I had no idea what industry it was in. I was just looking for any sort of scientific or research position. And I was so lucky enough to land at Estee Lauder companies and start as a lab technician. So starting out as a lab technician, I was for the Clinique makeup brand. So I've always done color cosmetics. And I would be assigned to a different chemist each day of the week. So there are 5 chemists in the group, and they ranged from entry-level chemists to senior chemists. And of course we had a lab manager, but it was really interesting to bounce around each day to talk to the chemists you were working with that day, to pick their brains. And of course, some chemists will want to share and teach, while others, that's not their forte. But any little thing that I could pick up, I tried to be like a sponge. And fortunately, my lab manager, he was very big on teaching, educating, and trying to help everyone succeed and grow. So I got very, very lucky, because I know not many people have had that opportunity. So, you know, being able to learn, and just like Danielle said before, like with the mentorships and everything, you know, I got exposed to multiple types of products and multiple people and their different teaching styles, their different formulating styles, you know, and especially from a color chemist standpoint, it's very, you know, it's kind of like baking. There is a science to it, but there's also a very creative and artistic angle to it as well. So it really helped. My initial experiences helped, you know, to get my feet wet in all those different areas. And now, yeah, it's a little different, because now, you know, I founded and I run my consulting company, and my current boss is, oh, she's the worst. But but I wish I had a 4-day work week like Vanessa. But yeah, now it's a blessing to be able to be free and be able to run the company as I see fit, and take on opportunities as I see fit. So thank you.
that 4-day work week thing sounds like something you might want to bring up with the boss.
Yeah, right?
And then this question is for everybody, and it's about compensation. Do you feel like you're paid fairly for the amount of work that you do? And Danielle, maybe we can start with you.
I think so. What I would say is you have to be patient. Coming out of college, it's not, it's a great starting salary, I would say, coming out of college for sure. But I think you have to be patient. And as we've kind of talked about, get some experience and you'll see how fast you can go in this career. I mean, there's so many different paths that you can take. That yeah, I would say the compensation is great.
Colleen, what do you think?
I think when I first started my career, probably not, back in the 70s. I think the warehouse drivers were making more money than I did at that point. But no, I think that most of the companies, I think, are looking across each other to benchmark, right? So I know that when I was at BASF, they kind of did a huge benchmarking. And from that, there was a lot more benefits that were offered, that's similar to the flex time, and they have parental leave now and other things that they didn't have when I first started my career. These are now the things that people are looking for, right? As they join the industry. So I think that, and also I think they gave an extra week vacation because that was what, people were doing. So I think in general, I agree with Danielle, when you first start, right? It might not look like it's a huge amount, but you can strategically really, depending on which area you get into, right? Which cosmetic science regimen that you get into, I think the regulatory folks do usually get a little bit more money, right? So you really just need to look and see, where's your passion? Where do you want to be? And then investigate what benefits are there. So.
Vanessa, what do you think?
For me, I think when I started out, the money was good. I was young. I didn't really have many expenses. When I was temping with the staff agency, I'm going to drop numbers because I'm sure you want to hear. So I was making $16 an hour. Bought myself a car because that was like my first job. But when I went on permanent, my starting salary was $48,000. Again, I felt like I was getting paid good. But then once you start gaining your confidence and experience, that's when I felt like I wasn't getting paid fairly for the amount of work that was given to me. So I used to, that's why I went back for my master's degree, because I thought I was going to be getting more money, but that wasn't really much of the case. So I started jumping from job to job, from contract manufacturer to contract manufacturer, so I could see that raise faster than just staying with the same company to get that 3 to 5% raise. So that's my story.
So moral of the story is, don't be afraid to job hop, because that's what's going to get you a bigger raise.
Although sometimes not too frequently, I would say.
Yeah, I was going to say, or utilize that as a bargaining chip, right? You want to do it as a bargaining chip.
Exactly. One of the things I wanted to comment is, I know things have, like, even when I started the industry, things that have changed. We didn't have LinkedIn when I started, right? Now you guys have this LinkedIn at your fingertips. And I would say, for one thing that has not changed is persistence. Like, my first job in this industry is because I persisted on this company. I bugged them basically to give me a job, and I didn't get paid jack. Vanessa, you're totally right. I got paid like $15 an hour, and I was upset, but it gave me the most experience I probably have to this day. It was a contract manufacturer. So the experience I gained was invaluable. And the fact that I did not let up in trying to get a job there. And persistence is key. So if you show any type of persistence or real enthusiasm for getting a position, people will pay attention to you.
Stephanie, did you want to comment on this one?
I agree with everything the panelists said already. The one thing that didn't get mentioned is compensation as a whole. So of course, salary and everything, you got to pay the bills for sure. But looking at other things in terms of like a nice 401k, good vacation time, things like that, and to be happy in your environment. Because, of course, you need to make a certain amount of money for everything to pay the bills. But at some point, money isn't necessarily happiness, because you could be making a ton of money but being in a miserable job. So just to keep that in mind, and the compensation as a whole in terms like vacation time, super important, 401k, dental, medical, etc. The things you don't think about, especially when you're younger and first getting into the industry.
Yeah, I just also wanted to comment that sometimes you take a job because it gets you to another company that you wanted, right? So you might take a lesser job or maybe a lateral move to get the experience that you're looking for so that you can build up your portfolio. So yeah, so you just have to look at it from a whole perspective. I agree, Steph.
That's a really astute comment as well. Okay, we have, thank you everybody who's submitting questions. We have some more specific questions. So here's a question. What advice do you have for those who have no work experience in the cosmetic field but want to be a formulator? Is working in a lab as a technician a good way to get into it? And if yes, what sort of laboratory experience is best and how long? And whoever wants to answer can jump in.
I would say look at research companies. Sorry, Stephanie.
Okay.
I was going to
Danielle.
say I would research some companies that you would be interested in and look for people in the lab managers, product formulators, and contact them. Honestly, that's what I would have done, and that's what I did do, and see what they are looking for. If you could take a technician position, and you will get so much information in just 1 year of working in a lab. You will learn so much. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, we hired some interns and then we actually hired them as full-time employees after they started with us because we found how invaluable they were, even though they were new. And they were basically just training, just similar to what Stephanie said. She had different people that she was working with. Our interns would work with different folks in the lab and learn how to do all the different formulations. So then they were able to then build their portfolio, right? So it was a strategic decision to do that. And it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, to add on to Colleen, I know a lot of companies will look for the entry level right out of school as a lab technician to start. And as a lab tech, my responsibilities were working with the chemist and kind of doing all the dirty work. So they would hand me the formula, and I would make the formula. They would explain each raw material. Of course, you got to clean beakers and fill mascaras, which is the worst thing on earth. But you do gain that valuable experience, and it would be very difficult for someone to come out of school and then just start as a chemist immediately formulating. You do need a years or so of the transition. So even though if you had the chemist title, you're still going to be doing quote unquote lab tech type jobs throughout while you learn as you're younger, through your younger stages of your career.
Thank you all. This is a question that we covered a little bit before, but not everybody got a chance to answer it. So I'm going to pose it again, which is, what are some things that you like to see on an undergraduate student's resume? So specifically undergraduate, somebody who hasn't, gone to get a master's or anything.
I would say at least some lab experience, doing some lab work at school. I think probably like Stephanie was saying, or Colleen, like an internship is key, but I know that's not always possible. Sometimes if you have to actually get a paying job for the summer, if it's not a paying internship, but I think at least having some lab work. So understanding working in a lab of some sort and having some discipline. Sometimes even if I've seen on a resume that somebody says discipline in a job for a long time, or has shown some sort of work ethic as well, then you're likelier to give them a chance at getting a position.
Yeah, for me, it was looking at, if they did a poster at an ACS meeting or maybe wrote an article, if they were involved in different community activities, to show that they were a team player. I had some people that had done Toastmasters to help them with presentation skills. So when I looked at some of those key things, I felt, okay, maybe they don't have the experience, but they have the initial talent, right? The things to start with for us to teach them. So those are some of the things I was looking for. Besides the coursework, right?
Okay, this question is specifically for Stephanie. What was the experience like transitioning from a company that was working on the products to a company that was working with the raw materials for the products? And can you elaborate on the difference between the two?
Sure, absolutely. So I started out in a finished goods company with Formulation, and my apologies if I misspoke, but then I switched to a contract manufacturer. So contract manufacturing is where brands and finished good companies will come and contract out the actual production piece of the program. So, a brand will come and pay the contract manufacturer to formulate or not formulate and just to produce. So going from a brand to finished good company, it's interesting because you get to see the product from A to Z. So from the initial conception to the launch, and you work with the different teams and the different disciplines within that company, like the packaging team, the product development team, the sales team, the marketing team, and then into the production team, et cetera. Working in a contract manufacturer, it's extremely fast paced. So from a finished goods company, you're looking at maybe 8 projects a year, 10, if that. If you when going to a contract manufacturer, you're working on probably 8 formulas in a week. And contract manufacturing, you get the brief, so you do get the beginning, and it's just a matter of racing to formulate and get a product that's stable, that fits the brief and what your customer is looking for, and then it gets handed off. And so you're not involved as much in the packaging, the marketing, the strategic part of that product. But yeah, a finished good brand is a much slower pace, but you do touch every part of that product, including, I forgot to mention, like safety testing, sensory testing, clinical testing. Whereas a contract manufacturer, it's much fast paced. You don't get to own that product as much. So it's give or take. There's pros and cons to both. I prefer contract manufacturing and consulting because it's the quicker pace, and I really enjoy working quickly.
I just want to add on what Stephanie said about contract manufacturing, that it is definitely much more of a fast pace. I think you get to touch more of a variety versus just sticking with a skincare product versus coming from a skincare brand, or just sticking with just hair care products. It's more of a variety. So you're touching maybe color cosmetics, you're touching skincare, you're touching maybe some clean household products. So it's more of a variety, and you're going to gain your experience quicker, faster.
Yeah, I would like to just talk a little bit too. So I think there's different appreciations that you get from different jobs, right? So when I was on the customer side, I did start in contract filling, and I agree it was the best job to start because you got to learn fast and basically troubleshooting, problem solving, all that. So it was really good with the scale up. When I went to the customer side, though, a lot of it was trade secret, right? So you don't want to really publish too much about what you're doing, but you are seeing your product from start to finish. And then you go to the store and your product is on the shelf. So that's really, really gratifying, right? I'm very proud about that. But on the raw material supplier side, you get to present, you get to develop new products, you get to patent, you get to publish. And I think, they want to outline that. So I think it just depends on what you're looking for from a career point of view. And, what are the gratifications that make you tick, right? What's exciting for you? I think that's the difference.
And I'll chime in as well, because I agree with, it's funny when all of you talk, I'm like, yes, I know what you're saying about seeing your product on the shelf. And Stephanie, you've hit on all those points. You learn so much working for a brand, like all the things that are required just to get a product to the shelf, and then seeing your baby on the shelf is so gratifying, right? So I do agree with all that. And contract manufacturing does, the pace of it is not boring. So it's true. I think they're all so many cool careers in cosmetic chemistry that you can do. You have a lot of options. So.
This is awesome. I love it when you all jump in and like build on each other and what everyone else is saying. That's definitely my favorite part of this panel so far. Okay, this is a question that anybody could answer. For somebody who has a PhD or is currently getting their PhD and wants to get into this field, like where would they start potentially? Would they be like a lab intern, or would they jump in as a scientist or like sales or product development? Where do you think someone with a PhD should start?
If I can just extend off that as well, is it advantageous as well to do a postdoc for someone looking to go into industry?
I think if you're getting into the raw material side of things, it would be very useful. So like Colleen's talking about BASF, they develop ingredients. So if you have a PhD in cosmetic chemistry or in science, any type of science, even polymer science, BASF sells ingredients that are polymers that are used in hair care or for rheology control. So if you had a postdoc degree in polymer science, then you could get hired by a company like BASF, and then it would be, that ingredient could be used in cosmetic products. So I think it depends on what you would like to do. If it's, I think postdoc more for a research position, but then you also, I mean, I think more on the raw material side would be my opinion, but I'd like to hear what everybody else says.
I would agree with Danielle, but Danielle, touch on the applications lab versus a synthesis chemist.
True,
I don't know
right.
that part because I'm on the development side.
Yes, so that's true. So synthesis would be raw materials that are used as ingredients in products. So you could use your background, your postdoc background in synthesis of polymers to develop ingredients. Whereas, so my company has an applications lab. So we use these ingredients in final products to showcase how the ingredients can be used for marketable products, basically. So products that you would see on the shelf, products that Vanessa and Stephanie would develop for their customers. So my company, probably from more close to what Colleen did for BASF, we're a distributor, so we distribute BASF ingredients, but we have applications labs. So we take all of these ingredients and figure out a way to market them in each market in our industry. So whether it's color cosmetics, hair care, skincare, body washes, we address every single market with the ingredients that we distribute. I don't know if that answered the question, but.
Yeah, just to add on to that. So yeah, I think from a postdoc position, BASF does hire postdocs for different things. We also have some university relations with different universities for specific things. So just as an example, when I was with ISP, for 10 years, we basically were trying to develop new polymers for low VOC hairsprays, right? So the regulations came in, we had to reduce the amount of VOCs, which was the alcohol in the water, the alcohol in the propellant. And then we worked with the polymer scientists. So basically we told the polymer scientists what we needed, right? That, when you add water, this is what happens to the hairspray. And then they came back and we put together a program together. And that's how I learned about polymers. We understood the polymer structure, right? A relationship in order to, reduce the molecular weight and still get the hold and things like that. So great learning experience. I mean, the whole industry, we worked with the valve companies, the can companies, everybody, because we had corroding cans on the shelves. So it was a great learning. But I think that, so I think there's a lot of opportunities for PhD chemists for those types of things. So synthesis is definitely part of it. Process scale up. I think Stephanie mentioned that, right? When you're at the contract filler, you're basically taking something. If you have a trouble on the bench making something, think about when you're scaling it up. If it takes you over 2 hours to make it in a beaker, it's going to be hours before you can make it in the plant. So these are all types of things that are available.
So this question sort of builds on some of the stuff that you were just talking about, Colleen. But for somebody who is maybe more familiar with like chemistry lab techniques and stuff and is not as familiar with cosmetic science, what are some common types of characterization methods that are used when designing and testing new products or ingredients potentially?
So analytical techniques, so let's just talk polymers. So you need to know the molecular weight distribution, right? Molecular weight plus the molecular weight distribution, residuals from a regulatory point of view, because if you're processing something, you want to have residuals that are going to be low so that they're safe to use. So there's a lot of analytical techniques. I know when we do troubleshooting, when there's a problem at the site and we're trying to figure out what's different about a raw material, they do a whole characterization. So there's a whole gamut of analytical techniques that are used. I don't know all the names of all of them, but and then when we were testing our polymers on hair, we used Textile Research Institute. They had a lot of different techniques. We were able to tag polymer and then basically fluoresce it to see where it actually went on the hair. So as I said, there's a lot of different techniques that are out there to do that. I don't know if anybody else.
Okay. The next question is for Stephanie. What's one of the biggest lessons that you learned while working at Estee Lauder?
The very first lesson I learned is xanthan gum has to be predispersed in a glycol. So it's, yeah, it took, I tried to do it in water and it took about 2 hours, and yeah, and I didn't know why I wasn't going in. But that from a formulator technical standpoint, that's the very first thing I learned. But in general, a good learning is you have to be patient. I know, you guys are going through some of your labs now, and, the different labs of like the heating to a certain temperature, the transfer time in an emulsion, the speed on the mixer, like those are all extremely important. And, if you're not patient, sometimes and you rush, sometimes you could, mess up your experiment. And the whole point of working on the bench as a formulator, you have to be able to make something that's repeatable. And you could make the best thing since sliced bread in a beaker, and it could be the best mascara, the best lipstick, the best SPF cream. But if you're not able to scale it up or repeat it, it doesn't matter. It's all for naught. So definitely, being a little more patient with things, and just being deliberate with your notes, and taking down and writing, lots on the raw materials, processing times, mixing times, processing temperatures, and your scale and weighing. Of course, weighing errors could cause a product to come out different from time to time.
Thank you so much. This next question, I'm going to direct to Vanessa. Speaking about like seeing your product on a shelf and things like that, can you walk us through the process of getting a product from concept to market, basically?
So we'll always ask for a benchmark product, which is a product that's already out in the market. The client has their own idea, whether, let's say, for instance, they want a shampoo. They want an all-natural shampoo. It needs to sud. It needs a lot of things, right? And it's all in their head. So for us, we need a tangible product that we can compare all of these requests and ideas to. So we'll always ask for a benchmark product it's out in the market. So I'm sure you're using something that's out in the market that if we were to replicate, you would be happy. So that's how we take on projects. We've had a couple bad experiences on innovation We attempted some innovative products and totally failed, and the customer wasn't happy, so we had to give a refund. So we stopped that immediately. So we work off of benchmarks. So as long as we have something to compare to, we're going to pretty much hit the mark, sorry, the client's expectations. So once we get that benchmark in, we're testing pH, we're testing viscosity, density, we're testing performance, and all of the requests from the client. So when we create our sample, we're testing it against the benchmark. Again, if it's a hair care product, we have mannequins in-house. So we're testing the benchmark product on the mannequin and what we've created. We're testing to make sure the pH is matched, the viscosity is matched, performance is the same. And then we'll submit, once we're happy, we'll submit that sample to the client. The client tries out the product, and we'll usually get the same response. They'll either love it or there'll be some tweaks that need to be made. So we'll make those tweaks and then submit another sample to the client. They love it, fabulous. And then now they're picking out their packaging, they're talking to their graphic design artist, everything that they need to get to the next step, which is manufacturing. So once their products are manufactured, then they're outselling it to the world. Depends on their sales strategy.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful, especially for, people who haven't done any of this before. They don't know the process from start to finish. It can seem sort of confusing and opaque from the outside. So thanks for walking everyone through that.
Yeah, and it's a lot of trial and error. Like Stephanie said, you need to be very patient. I talk to my experiments. You got to give it love and patience. So it's a lot of trial and error. There's some products that it may take five attempts, maybe 10 attempts, days, weeks, maybe months. You'll experience separation, all sorts of things. You'll be surprised.
And just to add to what Vanessa's saying, and I agree with everything, the other issue too is the wild card is your client. Sometimes they change the benchmark or they change what they want the product to be. So you could make a submission that could be like, oh, this is great, but we decided we wanted to tweak it a little bit this way. So I've had a lot of clients where you go back and forth. So you do have to have a lot of patience.
And then probably I have experience working for a brand that's Hawaiian Tropic. I know you have this at Estee Lauder. Marketing is basically your client, right? So you're making submissions to marketing, and then all of a sudden they're going to change what they want to do. So yeah, it's definitely, I agree with all of what you're saying. There's patience. My boss at Hawaiian Tropic, and Teresa could back this up, used to say, you need to make another formula for your other formulas to be scared as a backup. Because I know what you're saying, talking to your formulas. She's like, don't fall in love with your formulas and make another formula as backup so the other ones are scared. So that's also advice.
Okay, this is a question for everybody. For somebody with a bachelor's degree in chemistry, for what careers or what type of planned career path should someone consider a master's either in cosmetic science or more in a hard science versus an MBA?
I would say depending on the path I think I spoke about earlier, if you're going to want to stay more in the scientific in the lab and say lab management versus more business management side of cosmetic chemistry, maybe. That'd be my opinion. I don't know about what everybody else has to say, but.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It really depends on where you want to go. So if you want to work in the lab, a lot of people don't want to work in the lab, right? So they graduate and then they want to be in chemistry but not work in the lab, and that's okay. There are other roles, new business development roles, future business. Now there's all this digital stuff that's going on, right? So there's a lot of other roles, but they are looking for the technical, right? So technical marketing, technical aspect to that. So you do need to have the technical piece but you don't necessarily have to work in the lab. So I think that's the key there. So those people typically will do an MBA route, right? Whereas if you're going to be, I think for the synthesis, most of the synthesis folks, at least at BASF, I think are mostly PhD. But you know, in the formulation end, it could be any science almost, right? It's just really because it's such a creative area. You know, if you're good at batching, you know, color matching, whatever, that's your passion and you're able to do it, then you don't really need all that. So then the cosmetic science, like I said, I went back to school because I didn't understand what was going on, right? We were making products and they weren't coming out. Again, making carbapol, having footballs, you know, having these jellies in the formulation, right? So again, you learn some by experience, but then you really want to kind of understand that structure, you know, polymer relationship. And that's why you take those extra courses, just to understand that.
So another question about specific roles in the industry. What would you say is the best role to stay in what's the best role if you want to stay on the creative side and use your chemistry background?
So I would say, in my opinion, you know, being a formulating chemist for a finished goods company, or for the contract manufacturer that is producing finished goods, I think there's a lot. I mean, obviously science behind it, but I think the hardcore science is behind with the raw materials, and synthesizing the raw materials. And I don't have any expertise or any knowledge on that or experience, so I can't speak to that. But as far as finished goods, you know, it is very creative, but also very artistic and very scientific as well. So with the undergrad in a science, it definitely helps, for sure. So that's my answer.
I would agree, like formulations is very creative. So anything around formulating a product is an art and a science, like I said. So having the science background, like Stephanie said, is key, but having some creative way to either make a product or, you know, match a benchmark or get to a brief that marketing is giving you, how to achieve that. Sometimes you have to be very creative in doing that.
One thing I would like to add, and I apologize, Colleen, if you were going to speak, but recently there's been a very high trend in, so product development and marketing are generally, for brands, finished good companies are generally, you know, they come up with a concept. So they're more or less, I don't want to say the brains, but they come up with the concepts, they follow the trends, and then they provide the project brief or the concept to the bench chemist to, you know, then go ahead and formulate. And it seems to be a very uptick in the trend of more technical people or ex-formulators moving into roles of like the product development and marketing. There are a lot of brands that have taken on more technical people for these roles.
I totally absolutely agree with you, Stephanie. That was one of the key things I've seen, at least with BASF, because you know, our briefs do come, you know, even the new product development is coming from market trends, right? We look at where the trends are, we look to see what's out there, and if we don't have that chemistry, then we're looking to develop that. So you can be creative in the chemistry part, but I think that the concepts are actually coming right from the marketing, and then new concepts also coming from formulators, you know, just things that you're trying in the lab that look interesting. You know, you put together a new jelly or a new, you know, jam thing type thing that might be interesting for hair or skin, and put it out there and you give it a nice name and it goes. Create a new product.
Yeah, just to tag on, it's just, I think you need to realize if you want to use your brain on the creative side, do more of the marketing, product development. You want to be more hands-on, the formulation as a formulation chemist.
And
I
it's
also
really
think
awesome.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It's
No,
important to
you
do
go
that
ahead.
state of the art. I think it's understanding the market, right? It's understanding what the new trends are, looking at where, you know, what's happening in the just globally, right? And you're seeing things so much quicker now because of the internet and blogs and things like that. I mean, if you get an influencer that likes a particular product, it's gonna go crazy, right? So there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
One of the things that I love the most about this industry is that there are so many different career paths that you can take within it. Okay, I have a question for all of you. What kinds of chemistry knowledge do you specifically use in your everyday work?
Analytical, I'll just say one. You use all of the aspects of it. I don't know. That's a tough question. Because if I didn't learn, like most, I didn't learn cosmetic chemistry in school, but I definitely feel like the basis of chemistry helped me in my career. So I know that although Vanessa, Colleen, I think Stephanie too, you guys did cosmetic chemistry advanced degrees, but starting out, I feel like understanding how to solve a problem, that's huge in our career. So knowing the analytical steps to take in order to solve a problem is very important in cosmetic chemistry. That's one.
Yeah, it's getting to the bottom of what the problem was, right? Why is this product that you had made in the lab that was thick, that's no longer thick? And you find out that there's a block of salt that's on the screen that's just shearing the heck out of your product, right? In this big launch. So, these are the types of things that you see. I don't know what else to add there.
Cosmetic chemistry, right? Knowing how things interact, knowing what an emulsion is very important, and how to form one, and what is an emulsion. And, so I think you also need that as well. That will like open your mind because they don't generally teach that in undergrad. So I think they are now, some schools do.
Yeah, but there are courses. I mean, if you don't want to do a full course in cosmetic science, again, the Society of Cosmetic Chemists has the continuing education program where you can actually focus in on a particular area.
That's actually how I learned.
That's how I learned a lot of the different things, like areas I was not, like you were asking earlier, what other, technical, you're looking for technical literature, you're looking for whatever courses are out there. And then if someone has experience, if someone, has made these types of products, get experience from them. So
I think actually I would say that to any students now, like if you could get into, I know the Society of Cosmetic Chemists has obviously college for undergrad for students. So if you could get in any course like Cosmetic Chemistry 101, Emulsions 101, I took all of those through the Society of Cosmetic Chemists, and I use them to all of that knowledge to this day.
Yeah, definitely research. Researching the chemicals, knowing what phase they go in, what they're soluble in. Some products are only soluble in water. For me, when I get stuck on a project, I call the raw material suppliers. So we rely on people like Danielle and Colleen to explain, hey, I'm messing with this polymer and it's not doing this. We're explaining the project to them because the ingredient that we're having a problem with is coming from somebody like BASF, which is the raw material supplier. And they have in-house chemists, technical in-house chemists that work with this every day. So they can help give us tips on how to solubilize things or mix things together. And then we'll go back to the bench and just try their suggestion. Most of the time it works. So we rely on the raw material suppliers as well.
Yeah, we've actually done videos where they're videoing what they're doing, and then we watch it, and then we're like, no, you don't do it that way. So yeah, our tech service, I know a lot of the groups have technical service groups, but that's their expertise in a particular area, whether it's polymers or surfactants or things like that. So you can always reach out to those groups.
Okay, another question for everybody. What are some of the most common trends in formulations and in ingredients that you're observing in your work?
I can take that one, and I think everyone will agree with this one. Sustainability, more naturally derived raw materials, more eco-friendly raw materials, trying to formulate, because many times historically, most formulas would need a lot of heat. So to try to go more room temperature formulations to reduce carbon footprints, waterless formulations. I'm sure you guys have all seen the tablets for like shampoo tablets, even toothpaste tablets, things like that. And I don't think that's going anywhere. And thank you, Colleen and Danielle, because the raw material suppliers are really embracing this new trend, because it's not going away, and they're creating new raw materials that will fit that naturality, sustainability, but also be functional.
Awesome. Thank you. And then one last question about networking, and everybody who's watching, please consider this a last call. If you have any final questions, submit them now. But one last question from me, because one of the things that you were talking about regarding getting into this industry is the importance of networking. So my question is, how do you form a network in this industry if you aren't yet involved in it? And I'm going to go ahead and say, besides the FLSCC, or besides your local chapter of the SCC, because that's the best way. But any other recommendations?
For me, you need to be strategic, right? So you need to look and see, what are you looking, where do you need to network? So I think like a good example was, now we're going with natural preservatives as a good example, right? So this is a whole new area for many people. It's not an easy fix, and there are some technical experts out there. So again, similar to what Vanessa had mentioned earlier, I mean, you just use LinkedIn, or you look at the technical literature and see who's writing the books on these things, right? Who are the experts, and then reaching out to them. And I'm telling you, I've reached out to people and they respond. It's not like they're going to ignore you. So I encourage people to do that, but it's really very strategic. And then, so if you think about it, they're the opinion leader, right, in that field, whether it's preservatives or polymers or wherever. So you want to be able to strategically create this network and build on it as you're going through your career. And then you go to technical meetings, right? You go to an annual meeting or something, and you see someone present a topic. That's another way to do it, right? You basically see someone talking about, sustainability or new natural ingredients. There's a lot of new things. The biome, right, is out there now, microbiome. So I have no clue what those things are, but I know that there's a whole expert team, like a lot of people that are, raw material suppliers. And it's interesting, when we were doing the low VOC work, I'll go back to that again, the whole industry was trying to solve that problem. And we really, even competitors, we'd be at meetings, we'd all be, not that you're sharing secrets, but what was working, right? It's like, oh, we have to lower molecular weight. Okay, so we all knew that, right? And then the propellant people would come out and say, well, we have a new propellant. Have you tried this? And then the can company had something else. So it was really trying to solve a big issue. And now you have that whole network of people, right, that you've been to, that you're now working with. And then you would build on that. So if you stay in the aerosol area, I mean, I think I've moved away from that, but I would go to the Southern Aerosol Technology Association as an example, and go to their meetings and meet people that were doing even the paint industry. So we were basically looking at other industries to see how they solved it, to see how we could think about how to solve it for us as well. I think that's one of the key things. I know when I was in charge of the polymer business for SIBA, we did home and personal care. So we found polymers that worked in other industries, but then we had to clean them up from a regulatory point of view to use it for personal care. But we knew it did this for fabrics, so why wouldn't it do that for hair, right? So that's where the creative part comes in. You're able to look at from an industry perspective, and then you create this network as you go along.
One thing I'd like to add too is the industry, it's a smaller industry and everyone is so friendly. And for the most part, I think most of the people that I've run into, they want to teach, and they want to help, and they want to help the next generation and mentor and move up. I mean, my boyfriend, he's in IT, and that industry is so closed off. There's little networking. So the cosmetic industry it's really unique in that situation. And like I said before, you make lifetime friends. So even through an internship, even coming up to an SCC meeting, and I know it's probably a little intimidating walking into a room of, you know, industry professionals and not knowing anybody, but just, you know, show up, have a drink or just water, and, you know, just network and just talk to people, and people will open up a lot easier than you would expect.
That's a really great point. And I would like to mention to everybody that the FLSCC is having an in-person meeting on November 3rd in Fort Lauderdale. So if you would like to RSVP to that, you can find information on our website, which is, well, we're having some redirect issues right now, but if you Google FLSCC and theoretically flscc.org, should take you there. And I just want to say thank you so much to Colleen and Vanessa and Stephanie and Danielle for agreeing to be here today and for answering everyone's questions. I know it's a difficult industry, or it can seem difficult to break into from the outside. So I know everybody is really grateful to have you here and have you give them some advice. So thank you for all of the productive discussion today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks
thank you for
having us.
joining.